and home of the brave. The worst naval disaster in American history, now the survivors who live to tell about it.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. President Bush has decided how he wants to spend your money. Almost $2 trillion. That's a lot of money. But in the boom years, before the economy went into a dive, Congress was on a spending binge, and the president wants to force some reductions. As you might expect, that's bringing immediate protest, especially from Democrats who think that he's hurting social and environmental programs way too much. But as NBC's Campbell Brown reports from the White House tonight, the president is aiming his budget at tax cuts, not at Democrats. Campbell?
Tom, this is when the battle with Congress really begins and when Americans find out what they'll have to give up to get the biggest tax cut in 20 years. Dozens lining up today for a first look at the details of the president's nearly $2 trillion budget. A plan even he says is designed around giving Americans a $1.6 trillion tax cut.
Budget puts the taxpayers first, and that's exactly where they belong.
But to give taxpayers relief, Bush slashes popular government programs, cuts for 10 of 25 government agencies. Bush's goal, limiting much of government spending to just a 4% increase, half of what President Clinton got last year. On the chopping block, community policing, the program championed by Clinton to hire new officers, a 17% cut. Money to train health professionals at children's hospitals, a $35 million cut. A more than $2 billion cut in environmental programs. And the president abandons a campaign promise on the environment, a pledge to spend $100 million to help poor countries protect their environment and reduce debt, a decision some political analysts say could galvanize environmentalists for an all-out war with the Bush White House.
They believe that George W. Bush has directly targeted for the big knife the programs that they hold most near and dear.
But the president insists this is a compassionate conservative budget that includes an 11.5% increase for education, just over $150 million to help seniors buy prescription drugs, and new tax credits to help low-income Americans buy health insurance. Democrats argue Bush is throwing away a rare chance to save Social Security and Medicare on a tax cut that's too big.
It's unconscionable for us to simply look at the problem and say, we'll let our children solve it. We'll go ahead and have tax cuts now.
Now, advisors say the president will be firm on limiting spending, but this budget is now in the hands of Congress, and lawmakers will be spending the weeks ahead trying to add in money for their favorite programs. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Campbell Brown at the White House tonight. Every president promises a new era for federal spending, getting rid of the pork, the excess, and the just plain silly. But sooner or later, those programs come back, sometimes in new forms, but they do come back. Tonight, the fleecing of America. Here's NBC's Lisa Myers.
They were among the most ridiculed of all government programs. Money for Angora goats to produce mohair, sweet deals for honey producers.
It's amazing that this program even existed. If we're not alive today, I don't even think the federal government would invent this program.
In 1996, Congress seemed to get the message. It passed the Freedom to Farm Act, phasing out many subsidies, actually saving the taxpayer money. At least that was the promise. What actually happened is much different. Since then, almost all farm subsidies instead have exploded, from $4.6 billion to $32 billion last year.
I used to say that the Congress was spending money like a drunken sailor, but I've never known a sailor who ever had the imagination that Congress does for spending money, to tell you the truth.
Sometimes instead of direct subsidies, Congress approves loans that farmers don't have to pay back, or so-called emergency spending. There are instances when emergency spending is needed, droughts and floods, for example. But critics charge that many items labeled emergency are anything but. In a few cases, subsidies actually did go away. Congress was especially proud of getting rid of the wool and mohair subsidy, which was started back in the 50s to guarantee a reliable source of wool for military uniforms. But it was not gone long. Congress allocated what it calls emergency funds for wool and mohair. Cost this year $35 million. Wool producers say they need this money to stay in business. Honey producers also lost their sweet deal for a while, but Congress backtracked there too. giving beekeepers as much as $26 million this year, money they say they need.
The people who need it certainly should have it. I mean, we have to keep the industry going somehow.
The spigot has been turned on, and billions of taxpayers' dollars are being wasted.
So a cautionary tale for the new president. After promising it would shear waste from the budget, Congress has instead pulled the wool over taxpayers' eyes. A grade A fleecing of America. Lisa Myers, NBC News, Washington.
In other news out of the Capitol tonight, federal highway safety officials issued an unusual consumer safety warning about a very common kind of vehicle passenger van. It turns out drivers may need to have extra training to deal with a hidden hazard in these vans. More on that now from NBC's Robert Hager.
The government warning today about a newfound danger of rolling over in small 15-passenger vans. Thousands used by airport drop-off services, churches and senior citizens groups, even daycare centers. The government warns today that when they're fully loaded, the risk of a rollover goes up dramatically, 3 times greater than in a van or an SUV with only a few people. 4 members of the Prairie View, Texas A&M University track team killed, 6 others injured last year in one of hundreds of rollovers. So many that laws already prohibit vans from hauling public elementary or high school students.
They were simply a disaster waiting to happen, and now we're beginning to pay for it with the lives of church groups, college teams, and this should not be.
The government says the van's in clipping. But as passengers are added to larger vans, the extra weight moves the center of gravity back and up, making the vehicle more prone to tip. Super Shuttle International has hundreds of the vans nationwide, already trains drivers for safety.
It's difficult to see if we're going to add anything to that, but we do have a very extensive safety program today, which I think will cover many of the things that exist today and that may exist in this report.
Ford says tonight the vans pass all its safety tests, but the government warns they're not for anyone to drive. Should be operated only by very skilled, experienced drivers. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
And now on to that continuing story. The Americans in China. Just a few days ago, it seemed all but certain the crew of the American spy plane would be free to leave. But again tonight, the Chinese are saying that the latest U.S. response is, quote, unacceptable. So here we are, day 9 of the standoff. NBC Jim Miklashevsky joins us now from the Pentagon. Jim, what's the latest there?
Well, Tom, tonight Chinese officials are still demanding a full public apology. Nevertheless, administration officials tell NBC News both sides appear to be getting closer to a deal. But the process remains painstakingly slow.
Commercial satellite pictures taken today reveal the Chinese apparently still searching for secrets aboard the damaged Navy plane. A line of trucks and buses alongside on the tarmac. 2 large transport jets now parked nearby. At the same time, U.S. diplomats meet the 24 crew members again today and report their conditions much better. They're getting plenty of exercise and emails from home, as well as new T-shirts, toiletries, and antacids. But in Washington, President Bush says the stomach-churning standoff must end.
It is now time for our troops to come home so that our relationship does not become damaged.
Still, U.S. officials believe both sides are slowly inching toward a deal. A letter of condolences from President Bush to the widow of the Chinese pilot killed in the crash is delivered today. And for the first time, the Bush administration is using the word sorry. Sorry for the death of the Chinese pilot, but...
That's not an apology, and we have nothing to apologize for.
Why? Because U.S. officials now tell NBC News the American plane was flying straight and level on autopilot when it was hit by the Chinese plane. Even in China, official news agencies now say the U.S. plane bumped, not rammed into the Chinese fighter, as if it were indeed an accident.
That may seem a minor concession, but U.S. officials believe it signals a shift in China's policy that could eventually lead to the release of the 24 Americans. But no one's predicting how soon. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Jim Miklashevsky at the Pentagon tonight. Still ahead tonight, Lifeline, important news on an early trial of an Alzheimer's vaccine.
I think that the vaccine holds great promise as a preventative approach.
Could a new vaccine hold the key to slowing the epidemic of Alzheimer's? That's Lifeline tonight. Up next, NBC News in depth, just how safe is our food. There's startling evidence of a deadly breakdown in the federal meat inspection system.
You know, if it weren't for my wife's arthritis, she wouldn't be here today. She's always depended on extra strength Bayer for arthritis pain. Nothing worked better.
When Mom had a heart attack, she knew to take original strength Bayer, like the doctor said.
Bayer not only took care of my mom's arthritis pain, aspirin actually helped save her life.
Knowing all that Bayer can do, why would anyone choose another pain reliever?
Bayer, take it for pain, take it for life.
Why so many days in hotels out there? So no matter where you're headed, you know you'll always get...
Kiss me?
A warm welcome. Days in. There you go.
Does it sometimes feel as if life's obstacles come after you? Introducing the all-new 2002 Escalade. The most powerful SUV in the world. Escalade. Make obstacles obsolete. Cadillac.
Bring in your appetite, people. Applebee's all-you-can-eat riblets are back. Our one-of-a-kind smoked riblets. All you can eat. It's got to be Applebee's. Eating good, eating good in the neighborhood.
You choose to be healthy. You choose to be successful. You choose to give back. You choose to be yourself. The choices you want, the voice you need to make the most out of life. Today's AARP.
New at 6, the city says there isn't enough parking and forces a popular spot for kids to close its doors. Tonight, we look at both sides of this decision, hear from city leaders and owner of the Beaverton Hoop, plus see if there are any chances for a compromise. Tonight at 6 on Northwest News Channel 8, where the news comes first.
NBC News in depth tonight. How safe is our food? A terrible outbreak of food poisoning in Wisconsin prompted Dateline and the Washington Post to conduct an investigation into meat safety. What they found is alarming. Foodborne illness is a huge problem every year in this country. There are 5,000 deaths, 325,000 hospitalizations, 76 million illnesses caused by food poisoning. And as NBC's Lee Thompson discovered, even new federal safety regulations are not always doing the job. Here's Lee Thompson.
There are laws in this country designed to keep things like E. coli 0157H7 from contaminating our meat supply. But don't tell that to Connie and Doug Creefall.
And I just remember thinking, how could such a healthy little girl get so sick so suddenly?
Just days after eating at the Sizzler Salad Bar in Milwaukee last summer, 3-year-old Brianna Creefall was near death.
And they told us that her brainstem was damaged and she'd be in a coma.
Brianna died and dozens of others were hospitalized, not because they ate undercooked hamburger, but because health department officials believe someone at the Sizzler may have used the same knife or counter to cut raw meat and then to cut watermelon, contaminating the fruit with the deadly E. coli bacteria.
The tainted meat came from this huge plant in Fort Morgan, Colorado. XL is one of the largest slaughter and processing operations in the country. 4,000 cattle a day go in one end and come out the other as millions of pounds of beef, all under the watchful eye of federal safety inspectors.
Dr. Mike Schwackert was one of those inspectors.
Violations of filth, documented over and over and over again.
Did those of you on site at the Fort Morgan XL plant ever call your district office and say, what do you want us to do down here?
numerous times the question was asked as to what we should do.
And
There were definitely no definite answers given.
The USDA has authority to shut a plant down, and that's what Schwackert wanted to do, but he felt his bosses wouldn't back him up. In fact, Schwackert says, while inspectors used to have complete authority over every part of the meat production system, under the new inspection program, they can do little more than review safety plans companies have written for themselves. Roger Villadero is the USDA's Inspector General.
it almost seems that meat inspection in this country has become sort of an honor system.
Yeah, at the moment it is, to a large extent.
An honor system with a whole lot of finger-pointing. Excel blames Sizzler for mishandling the meat and says it can't be held responsible for meat government inspectors have stamped, inspected, and passed. The inspectors say their hands are tied. And caught in the middle, Brianna Creefall, whose only mistake was going out to dinner with Mom and Dad. Lee Thompson, NBC News, Washington.
You can see more of Lee Thompson's report tonight on Dateline at 8, and you can get more on food safety by logging on to msnbc.com. Up next, Lifeline, new hope for Alzheimer's disease, and Home of the Brave, a survival story these brave men and the world will never forget.
From spring to fall, it's in the air. From the Sunshine Leagues of Florida to the schoolyards of New York to the golden fields of California. It's allergy season. So talk to your doctor about Claritin, the #1 prescribed antihistamine in America. And when the ump yells play ball, you'll be ready. Claritin, the official allergy medication of Major League Baseball. Claritin has a low occurrence of side effects such as headache, drowsiness, fatigue, and dry mouth, similar to sugar pill.
The forces of nature are waging a war, and the target is your deck. But Thompson's Water Seal will stop them, because when others fail, Thompson succeeds, protecting your deck like no other, guaranteed. Thompson's Water Seal. It never takes a day off.
It's so easy. You'll love new and improved Ziploc Easy Zipper. Now you can easy zipper it and know it's closed. Ziploc Easy Zipper. Easy open, easy close. Easy Zipper.
Tell me that's not for us, Chuck.
It's not. But that is.
Whisket's home-style favorites. Meals with homemade taste like you'd make. Slow cooked and sealed in the Flavor Lock pouch.
Should we save him some?
Whiskas. What cats want.
Whoa! Lawn weeds, huh, Pete? Yeah. Try Ortho Weed Be Gone. Kills weeds, won't harm your lawn. Guaranteed.
Didn't hurt my lawn.
Lawn weeds? Leave it to Ortho.
We are healthy, strong, energetic, even sexy. We drink Ensure when we can't eat nutritious foods like these. Ensure has vitamins and minerals like in vegetables, calcium like in milk, and protein like in fish. From Ensure High Calcium to Ensure High Protein to Ensure Plus, it's a source of complete balanced nutrition, so we can get the most out of life. Ensure, drink to your health. And now Ensure is richer, creamier, and tastes better than ever in delicious new tastes.
Tomorrow on Today, Aretha, the Queen of Soul, starts her diva celebration with us. Tomorrow on Today. Tiger Woods on Headliners and Legends, tonight on MSNBC.
Now, Lifeline, and what looks like it might be a promising new treatment for Alzheimer's disease, a vaccine that just might be able to stop the disease in its tracks. Still early. However, NBC's chief science correspondent Robert Bazell reports tonight, the evidence in is encouraging.
It could be the key to stemming the epidemic of Alzheimer's disease, a vaccine that slows down or stops the terrible disintegration of the brain.
I think that the vaccine holds great promise as a preventative approach. I'm pretty convinced that people who are at high risk for the disease may be good candidates to receive this and reduce their risk of developing Alzheimer's.
Elan Pharmaceuticals, which makes the vaccine, has given it to about 100 people, the first human trials, showing it has no serious side effects. The critical tests to see whether it is effective start later this year. The great excitement about the potential for a human vaccine comes from experiments with these mice that are genetically engineered to have a form of Alzheimer's. The mouse brains disintegrate, and they lose memory and other mental function, just like people with the disease. Experiments show the vaccine amazingly prevents memory loss in mice, measured in this test to determine whether they can remember the spots where they can get out of the water.
The unvaccinated mice showed a memory deficit, and those who received the vaccine could ultimately learn the task.
How does the vaccine work? The brains of people with Alzheimer's accumulate gooey clumps of protein called beta amyloid that play a big role in the brain's destruction. In mice, the vaccine stimulates the body's immune system to actually clear out the dangerous protein. But do the mouse results mean it will work in people?
I think the chances are extremely high that they will translate into human benefit. The question is how soon.
The answer? The first effective therapy to reduce the scourge of Alzheimer's could be widely available in 2 to 3 years if the human experiments continue to go well. Robert Bazell, NBC News, New York.
On Wall Street, it was an up and down day that ended slightly better than it began. As a result, the Dow was up 54 points at the end of the day. NASDAQ was up 25 points. For those of you who have been wondering, ex-President Bill Clinton, still on his humanitarian mission in India, got to do something he said he's wanted to do for a long time. But he refrained because of partisan implications. He got to ride on a big old elephant, the symbol of the GOP. Mr. Clinton said he loved it, the elephant, and Republicans on Capitol Hill had no comment, at least for now. We'll be right back.
There's new hope for people with rheumatoid arthritis, a prescription drug that relieves pain and inhibits the progression of joint damage. It's called Remicade. Your doctor may prescribe Remicade if you're on methotrexate already and not responding well. You take 1 dose of Remicade every 8 weeks after the first 3 doses. Of course, Remicade is not for everyone. Serious infections requiring hospitalization have been reported. If you are prone to or have a history of infections, currently have one, or develop one while taking Remicade, tell your doctor right away. There's a risk of serious infusion reactions with hives, difficulty breathing, and low blood pressure. Ask your rheumatologist about Remicade, an inhibiting progression of joint damage.
Why so many days in hotels worldwide? Because you might want to go to London someday. And we can't be sure.
England!
Which one? Days in. There you go.
Jolly good.
From the moment we met, I knew there was something I had to know. Wow! Why couldn't we get along? What seemed to go wrong? Let's give it a second chance.
Somebody had their Minute Maid this morning. It only takes a minute, but the feeling lasts all day.
Coming through.
This weekend, Enterprise Rent-A-Car announces special low rates from just $9.99 a day. Friday till Monday from just $9.99 a day. Pick Enterprise. We'll pick you up.
1-800-RENT-A-CAR. When I had started, we could walk into the back of production and say, who's got Bill Johnson's computer? And someone in manufacturing would say, I do, Mo. And they you know, that's got to go today. You know, I promised my firstborn that would be on a truck tonight, and they'd say it's done. And people that work at Gateway are extremely passionate about working with people and helping people.
It's CNBC earnings season all this week. Major companies like Motorola, E-Trade, Yahoo, and others will report their first quarter results. How will the markets and sectors react? How should you react? Watch CNBC all business day to help you make the most of your money. CNBC and CNBC.com earnings season all this week. Profit from it.
Tonight's the home of the brave, the greatest naval tragedy in U.S. history, the USS Indianapolis. There is a brief reference to it in the film Jaws, but thanks to publicity in recent years and a new book called In Harm's Way, we now have a much greater appreciation of a stunning story of loss and survival in the closing days of World War II. July 30th, 1945, the sailors aboard the USS Indianapolis finally were going home.
It's a story that begins like this. Once upon a time, there were these 2,000 boys, and they set sail.
The cruiser had secretly delivered essential parts of the atomic bomb to an island in the South Pacific.
It's a story about sacrifice, duty, responsibility.
In just 2 weeks, the Second World War would be over. Peace would reign in Times Square and around the world. But before the Indianapolis got to a safe harbor, tragedy. Big Ed Brown.
All of my buddies in the first section got the torpedo.
A Japanese submarine had turned the ship into hell on the high seas. 300 men killed instantly. Giles McCoy.
Everybody was hollering, they, help me, and some of them had broken arms and broken legs.
The blast sent 900 more into the Pacific, and for 5 days, until they were rescued, a sailor died every 10 minutes. Shark attacks, exhaustion. Others just gave up.
300 survived, and I really wanted to know how.
55 years later, author Doug Stanton found in the saga of the Indianapolis profound lessons of life, the will to live. Lessons taught and never forgotten by survivor Giles McCoy, at the time just 19 years old.
Every one of them got killed when the ship was sunk.
Sailor Ed Brown had always considered himself lucky. Then he was floating near death, thinking of his mother back home in South Dakota.
They could see this telegram. It says, "We regret to inform you that your son has been lost in action." And I saw it just like it covered the whole sky.
They heard the voices of their past.
For McCoy, it was his mother's voice. She'd already lost 2 sons.
She'd say, "Because I brought you in the world, I didn't give you a guarantee that life would be easy."
And then there were the sharks.
I had one that swam between my legs one time, and I thought it was a Santa Fe Super Chief from Chicago to L.A. It looked so long under the water.
Doug Stanton will tell you that they'll never forget, and neither should you.
We can overcome that thing that we think we can overcome.
For those who were rescued, a lifetime to honor those lost, and to always remember.
See, I had all these years of having the enjoyment of a family, and those poor fellows out there didn't have that. They gave their life so this country could be free.
That's Nightly News for Monday night. Dateline tonight at 8. I'm Tom Brokaw, and I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Now at 6, prepare for power rates to skyrocket as much as 250%. The BPA offers some solutions. Plus, kids flock to the hoop for dances and sports, but not anymore. And the emotional farewell from one of the NFL's most beloved quarterbacks. Next on News Channel 8 at 6.
From KGW, where the news comes first. This is Northwest News Channel 8 at 6.
Hello, I'm Joe Donlin.
And I'm Laurel Porter. In tonight for Tracy Berry. Our top story, it could do serious damage to the Northwest economy. But today, the Bonneville Power Administration announced that power rates could jump this fall by 250%. News Channel 8's Bruce Sussman joins us live in Sky 8 with the details. Wow, Bruce.
Yeah, very impressive, Laurel, and not good news. A 250% increase would have devastating impacts. And down below Sky 8, the BPA says the power flowing through these lines will cost that much more unless the Northwest takes drastic action right now.
Instead of spilling water for salmon, BPA dams are quiet, holding back water now to make more electricity later. And many aluminum smelters are quiet too, like this one in the Dalles.